You are listening to the Intelligent Racer Podcast, where we look to educate and entertain the endurance racing community through discussions with racing professionals and elite age groupers.
In today's episode, I speak with Lars Christian Vold. He is the 2017 winner of Norseman Triathlon. It's considered one of the hardest triathlons in the world. I hope you enjoy. Lars, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you.
Great. So let's start off with learning a little bit about your athletic background. I mean, how did you land up getting into triathlons?
When I was younger, I did rowing, and then I had some years when I did nothing, and I was in the military, and then I really missed doing hard physical activity after the military. So then it was a friend of mine who said that, Norseman, that's the hardest triathlon in the world. You should try it. And I really liked that idea. So I just signed up and tried it. I bought the bicycle just some weeks before, and then I just met up. I had jumper's knee in both knees, so I wasn't ready at all. But I finished on the top, barely. I was like 140 out of the 160 that finished on the top. So and I finished in something like 15 hours or something. So after that, I was actually happy. I thought I would never do this again, but just to have done it, I asked my girlfriend, "Do you think if I try to get best, like if I really go for this in 5 years' time, do you think I could win this?" And she said no, and I didn't win that 5 years later neither. But now I'm here. I've done triathlon since then.
Awesome. And, you not coming from a swimming background, I mean, how was the swimming component? Did that take a while, or did you swim when you were younger?
No, I didn't swim. I mean, I knew how to crawl, but I had a lot of work to do on the swimming. The first years of Norseman, I didn't swim really well. I guess in Norseman, swimming isn't the most important part, or at least wasn't. Now it's getting more and more important there as well. So I have the last years I've done a lot of work on the swimming to try and get better technique and go faster, which is I think it's quite important to have good start.
Right. All right. So let's talk about Norseman. So for those who are not familiar with it, can you just kind of describe what makes it unique and challenging? I mean, it's known globally as one of, if not the hardest triathlon on earth. So can you just kind of walk us through each leg in terms of what are the challenging components of and what's unique about, the swim and the bike and the run of the race?
Yeah. First of all, it's really special when you go out in the ferry and you just jump off the ferry almost in the middle of the night. We start at 5 o'clock when it's still dark. And we jump into really cold water. And normally it's about 10 and 15 degrees Celsius, and sometimes it's really there are much waves. There are strong current that depends from year to year, but you have this it's much cold water coming down from the mountains, which make the fjord really, really cold. And after the swim, I'm usually quite dizzy because I'm so cold in my head, and it takes time it takes some time to get warm and get focused on the bike. So I always have to be really try to be really sharp, not to end up in the ditch in the start of the biking. And then it's still quite cold in the weather that early on the morning, and we're just going up to the mountains where it's normally quite a lot of wind. This year it wasn't, but that depends. It's different from year to year. But this year, as always, it was cold on the mountain, about 5 degrees Celsius on the coldest, I think, and a lot of rain. And the weather is really challenging on Norseman. In addition to it's hilly, a lot of hard hills and downhills, which are quite challenging. Last year I fell on the bike in one of the downhills with a lot of ditches in the ground, in the asphalt, bad asphalt after a hard winter. So the biking is is quite tough, I think, but also really it's a lot of variety, which I think makes the course really fun to do. It's not just flat all the time. You always have something to look forward to, some hills, some challenges, and the weather changes all the time during the course. So it's always a new challenge during the course. And then you have the run in the end. The first part is flat. That's quite like most Ironmans, the first 25Ks. But then we start to go upwards toward the Mount Gaustad, which is something around 1,800 meters, which is just steep uphill all the time. And last 4Ks are on this big there's stones everywhere, and it's really hard to run there. So this year I was quite scared that I would break my bone and break my foot or something, because it's so hard to keep the balance the last 4Ks.
Yeah, I was watching the video coverage of it, and it looks intense and pretty amazing. And just you mentioned before the 160 people. So just so the listeners know, I mean, the first 160 that get to that mountain get to go to the top, and then the rest run the rest of the marathon on a flatter surface. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so just in terms of your background here, I mean, how many times did you compete in the race before? Obviously, this year you won it. So, I mean, huge congratulations. And, obviously you started off not really knowing what you were getting involved in and got all the way to being able to win it, which is amazing. But how many years did that take?
Well, the first year that was, this was my seventh time. So it's taken me 7 times. But I guess I haven't really been into it before. The last 5 times I've really tried to see how good I can get. Before that, it was more like just to do it. 7 times. This was my 7th time. So
beyond just the experience of knowing kind of what the course can throw at you, I mean, what did you learn over these 7 times that allowed you to kind of, obviously get to the point where you were podiuming them and then eventually winning the race? I
mean, most of the keys are like you would do in any triathlon, focus on aerodynamics, choose the right tires for less, to go faster. I mean, like all those details. This year, I even had what's it called? I even my start number. I had it stick to my back so it wouldn't be taken by the wind and make more. So to make the aerodynamics better. Like all those small details which are important in any Ironman, I tried to optimize during the last years, and position on the bike and everything. But it's also, you have these challenges with the weather and it's cold and all that. So I had this wetsuit which is quite warm this year, 2x2 ignition, which have this extra it's warmer than other wetsuits, which is quite nice when you're in cold water. And I had this neoprene cap, which also makes my head warmer. And on the bike I used a jacket from the start, a quite aerodynamic jacket, but I just take on the jacket from the start because I know it's going to get cold. Earlier years I've taken on the jacket later, just to see if it gets cold. Now I know it's going to get cold anyway, so I just start with the jacket. I also have these warm elements that when in contact to oxygen that they get warm, which I put on my thighs and my back during the race to help me keep warm when it's on the coldest.
And what was the temperature like as you were getting into the run? Does it kind of warm up throughout the day? And I mean, I guess you're climbing a mountain at the end. I mean, does cold factor into the run as well, or really just the swim and the bike?
For me, during the run, I don't think the cold is a problem. I mean, I hate the warm conditions. So when it's cold during the run, I'm really in my element. And and in the start of the run, it's we're not so high above the sea level, so then it's not so warm anyway. But the higher up when we come closer to Mount Gesta, sometimes some years it's been snow there, so it can be really cold. This year it wasn't that cold, but I think when you're running, you keep warm anyway. So the run part, it's the cold is not a problem for me there.
Yeah. And, the reason obviously Norseman looks amazingly beautiful and really challenging, but I'm sort of a colder weather triathlete myself, and I prefer kind of cooler weather. So I'm sort of looking at this and being like, this may be too cold, but this is definitely more in my wheelhouse. I don't like really, really hot runs. I mean, it's just suffering. So maybe this will be better. And so for those who don't love that really hot, humid weather of, I don't know, Kona or something, maybe this would be a better option. Yeah,
for me, Kona is much. I've done Kona twice, and I think that's much more extreme than Norseman. In Norseman, I know exactly how to handle the cold. It's just to put on clothes and keep your own heat inside instead of letting it out. When it's too warm, it's so much difficult. You can't undress anymore. It's the heat is coming to get you anyway. It's so hard to get away from it. So I think it's much easier to handle cold conditions than warm conditions.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And then in terms of the cold water, I mean, you're jumping off a ferry, and you're, like you said, you're jumping off a ferry. That's the first time, I guess, you're touching the water, do you get an opportunity to do a little bit of a warm up, or, I would imagine that first jump into the water, does your breath get taken away from the coldness of the water? I mean, do you have trouble keeping your heart rate down? How do you manage that? That seems like that would be a challenge.
Yeah, that's it's an advantage to try the water before you go out in the water. On the ferry, we have hoses where we can try the water in the fjord just to see how cold it is. And the day before, it's a good idea to try out the water and just see how you react when you get into it. Because normally when it's really cold, and there are some parts in the fjord where it's colder where the cold water gets into the fjord from the mountains. You can, especially in the beginning of the swim, you can start almost like hyperventilate because it's a shock for the body.
Yeah.
But then you get quite. It doesn't take much time before you get used to it. So after a few minutes, you don't think about it anymore.
Right.
Just in the beginning, and you can. Yeah, some people may panic if they haven't experienced that before.
Yeah. And so one of the unique aspects of this race, and there's a few others like it, but that it's an unsupported race, right? So there's not aid stations. You have to have a crew that kind of supports you from a nutrition perspective. And I guess if you have a mechanical on the bike, that kind of thing. Can you just talk through that? I mean, you've now done this many times. You've now won the race. So, how important is that crew? How do you structure it? I mean, what is how are they kind of following you or meeting you on the course to make sure your nutrition is right? Or if you run into any issues, how are you communicating with them? Can you just kind of talk through that?
Yeah, I probably have the most experienced crew in Norseman. They have, almost all my crew have done Norseman themselves, and they've been my crew for several times now. So the crew is really, really important in Norseman. If you have an inexperienced crew or a crew that doesn't know how it's like to do a competition like that, I think then you'll have problems during the race. For me, I have the crew in order. Yeah, they are cheering me on along the road. They are giving me support. They are giving me food and drink. I see them like every 5 minutes during the whole day, so they have a really tough job to follow me. They stop like at every chance they have. They stop to see if I have any problems, to give me what I need for nutrition. And the good thing when you have a good crew is that I don't have to think about anything. They have control. They know how much I have to drink and eat, and I just trust them because we have gone through this before the race. So we agree on what my intake should be, and then I just trust them during the race. And the only thing I have to think about is how am I racing? Is this inside my comfort zone? Is this how I can I continue at this intensity for the whole day? That's all I have to focus on. So when I have good crew, that makes Norseman a really, really nice race.
Right. And you mentioned comfort zone. I mean, do you use any metrics to, heart rate or anything like that to make sure you're in a zone, or is it all by feel?
I use Garmin Vector power meter to see. I mean, it's always a combination with feel and what power I can push. But I know from training approximately how much power I can push for a distance like that, and also run a good run afterwards. So I have to see. I see on my power meter where am I now, and I also have to listen to how it feels, because sometimes this time especially I felt really good, so I could push a little more power than I normally would do in a full distance. So, and other times I don't feel so good, so I have to go a little bit lower. So it's always a combination between my power meter and also the heart rate. Sometimes I also have heart rate during the race to see if those three correspond.
Right. And then talking about nutrition, I had a question came up on that in my head, which is, I mean, are you doing anything, adjusting it specifically to the conditions out there? I mean, obviously, the colder you get, the nutrition needs become a little bit different. And
the only thing that I adjust because of the cold is how much I drink. But I still want to have the same amount of carbohydrates, especially. I take about 80 to 100 grams carbohydrates an hour. So if my support see that I drink less than I had expected, maybe because it's cold, then they give me more carbohydrates in form of gel, for example, instead of drink. So I always have to, or that's the nice thing about this race, that the support can keep control of how much I eat and drink. But I have to adjust, especially the drink. When it's colder, it's hard to drink a lot.
Yeah.
And also in the end of the race, I think, especially in this race, it's so long, it's so hard. My stomach, it's hard with the same kind of carbohydrates the whole day. I need like slow carbohydrates, but in the end, it's also possible to take just clean sugars, which is easier for the stomach to take up. So this year I puked. I threw up like 1 hour before the finish line, and then I had to go over to just Coca-Cola and make it easier, because I couldn't take in the energy drink that I've been taking the whole day.
Right. And so one of the things that kind of caught my eye watching the coverage is obviously the finish. So you're going up a technical rocky mountain, and it's really steep. For those who are listening who haven't seen this, Google it or something, look it up or watch the video. It's incredible. I mean, so first of all, I mean, how long does it take you from the start of that climb to get to the top? I mean, obviously you're elite, so you're going to be quicker than others. And then are you, what is the nutrition intake as you're climbing, and sort of how are you pacing it? It just seems like something where the heart rate's going to explode, and it's an area, I can't imagine the pain you're going through. I saw at the finish line when you and the other top athletes finished. I mean, you're completely exhausted. So
the last part is really, it's what makes Norseman. That's the hardest part. I think it's about 4 kilometers, and I didn't lap my watch this year, so I don't know exactly how much time I used, but I think it was between 40 and 50 minutes, I think. And that's just pain all the time. It's every step I take is really, really full of pain. It seems like when if I think about it, I try not to think about it when I do the last 4Ks, because it's I try not to think that it's still a long time left. I try just to think about the one step I'm doing at the time, because everything more than that seems like impossible. And I had this especially one guy in my support who was really I think at the time I think he was really cruel, because all the time he screamed at me, you have to run. So I just ran as much as I could, even though I felt I was like, I was going to faint. I was so dizzy, and my upper body didn't seem to be connected to the lower body. It was just like, yeah, I was so tired this year. But I guess I had disposed my race really good because I still managed to keep a decent pace up there. And when I fell over the finish line, I was finished. I couldn't have done it faster. It was like everything I had. So I was really, that's a good thing about the last part. I don't manage to take out so much in any other race because you use some different muscles. It's, you start a little bit from new, even though your body is really, really tired, but you use some different muscles. So you're able to take out even more than in other Ironman races, I think.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, what's really cool about this race is it truly gives you an opportunity to use every ounce of your energy with that climb at the end. It's like you're not going to have anything left in the tank. And, so did you know, does your crew tell you where your competitors are? You obviously had, a couple, very, very top athletes behind you kind of chasing you, and, one a US pro and Jordan Rapp, another former 2-time winner. I mean, did you know how much room you had, how much push you needed to give on that climb?
Yeah, in the climb, that wasn't the most stressing part concerning the competitors, because then I got the feedback that I was actually the distance, at least from my closest competitor, was increasing, which is really comforting. But before that, at times the lead was decreasing, which is really stressing. And then I just had to focus on what I'm doing and try not to be stressed by what's happening behind me, because I had to do my race anyway. I can't do it fast. I do whatever. I do the best race as I can, and I can't think about what's happening behind me. But it's really hard not to get stressed when the lead is decreasing. And when it's increasing, it's just the best feeling in the world. I just know that I had control. In the end, I knew that I had control. I just had to try not to break a leg or faint. And if I didn't do that, I knew I was going to take it, because the lead was enough to keep to the top.
And you broke the course record. So was that playing into it at all, or is that sort of just secondary kind of? Well,
this year I was determined to do the race of my life, no matter what the time was, no matter which position I was in. But of course, that's to take the course record. I knew before I started that I was able to do it if everything was if I did the race of my life. But that I actually did was that makes the victory even more fantastic.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. So, do you do anything specific training-wise that would be different versus, let's say, I don't know, Kona or something? I mean, you've got some very unique aspects of this race, but
actually, not too much. But in the weeks leading up to Norseman, I tried to do more hilly training, more running in uphills, because you use some different muscles than just running flat when it's all about the bounce. And also for cycling, I trained a little bit in the course this year, before some weeks before the race, getting used to the downhills. And practicing going really fast in the downhills, try to stay as low as possible to get as aerodynamic as possible, and see how fast I can take the turnarounds without losing grip. And it's about knowing the course, which is quite the course is challenging, and it's good to know, especially the downhills, and also just train a little bit in uphills. Like I just ended some interval sessions with one uphill interval, for example, the last weeks. But apart from that, I guess it's not too different from normal Ironman training.
Right. And, for someone who's interested in doing this race, me being one of them, I would love to do this race one day. I mean, I'm hearing, some of the keys to success would be, if you can get there early, get to check out some of the course. Obviously, that's a good rule of thumb for any race. Have a good crew, hopefully someone who's done the race or a lot of experience there. Is there anything else you would kind of recommend for a first timer to, be one of those 160 that, gets all the way to the top, and so it has that day that they really want? Is there...
Well, all of the things you said there are really important, and I think the most important ones: stay warm, get used to the course, know the course, and train uphill training. That's the most important. I can recommend. Yeah.
Cool. And so a couple final questions. One would be, I'm based in New York City in the US, and you're obviously, this race is in Norway. And so, I mean, what is the triathlon scene over in Norway? I mean, are there a lot of other races? Is it popular in the amateur ranks? I mean, how would you kind of describe it for, I'm not familiar with, with the triathlon scene over there.
Yeah, in summer it's really nice to train here, and and triathlon is it's growing so much here in Norway. But during the last 2 years, I think it's one of the fastest growing sports in Norway. So it's getting really popular, and even though you have the winters when it's harder to train, many people go abroad for training during the winter, myself included. But it's also nice, I think, when you get used to it and you get the right equipment, you can train triathlon during the winter as well. You swim inside a pool normally, and I bike. I do like two long rides on the bike with tires with spikes to keep me safe when it's slippery. So when you just have the right equipment, it's nice to train during the winter as well, and it's something else than just biking outside during summer. And I think also you get that's been a really good advantage for me to bike a lot outside during the winter, because it's so much. It's so hard to bike on spikes. It's you get really strong. You get really strong from it. So after winter with biking outside, I'm so much stronger when I get to my normal time trial bike.
So do you do any indoor bike training?
It's only the long sessions, the long and easy sessions, or they're never that easy. But the quality sessions, intervals and such, I do always inside during the winter. I think that's better because I don't get up the heart rate as much, because I get so tired in my legs from it's like strength, it's like power. What's it called? It's so much. It's you have a low cadence and you use a lot of power when you bike outside during the winter. So it's different from normal time trial biking, which I think is better to do the quality sessions inside, I think.
Right. And so we're almost out of time here. So I guess my final question would be, I mean, what's next on your kind of goals or race list? I mean, you've said when you first started, you told your girlfriend at the time, do you think I could win this in 5 years? Well, I mean, within 7 attempts, you did win it, which is absolutely incredible. So most people don't hit that kind of goal that quickly. But, so, I mean, what else do you have? What other goals do you have? Are you going to come back to Norseman? Are there other races you're interested in tackling? Just talk through a little bit of the plan or what you see moving forward.
Yeah, I actually haven't decided yet if I'm going to do Norseman again. I probably am, but my big goal now is I want to see how good I can get. My next goal is top 3 in an Ironman in the professional field. This year I'm probably doing Ironman Louisville, where I'll also meet Jordan Rapp, I think. And I really hope I can do top 3 there. That would be a big goal for me. And after that, I'll try to win an Ironman. Then I'll try to win a bigger Ironman. And my long-time goal is to reach the top of the world, like at least some of the best in the world.
Cool. Well, Lars, thank you so much for your time today, and best of luck with the rest of this season and next year and stuff. I'll definitely be tracking you, and thank you for all the information on Norseman. It's definitely, as I told my wife, it's on my bucket list. It's a race I really want to do at some point. So it's great to hear from you and just get some tips and just learn more about the race. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And if you ever do Norseman, just don't hesitate to contact me and ask for it. I'll help you with what I can.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Intelligent Racer Podcast. For more information on this and other episodes, please visit www.intelligentracer.com. Also, be sure to check us out on social media and please review us on your podcast directory. Join us next time for another edition of the Intelligent Racer.